Hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa. Welcome to my channel where we help to provide the wisdom and strategy necessary to help your organization flourish. Today, we're going to talk about why your employees seem disengaged. Disengagement is something that many employers will experience with their employees over time. It can be related to a plethora of reasons, and I'm really excited to dive more into this today. First thing I want to address is this: disengagement is different than laziness. Oftentimes, as leaders, when we see employees seeming checked out or unmotivated or doing the bare minimum, or you're having to beg them to do basic things, we attribute that to a level of laziness. And although they look similar, they're often different. And the reason is that they're rooted from a different cause, right? Or a different perspective or intention. When people are exhibiting laziness, it means that there's just a lack of work ethic, and that they just simply don't want to do things just because they don't want to, right? It's usually not at the cause of the employer. However, this is usually something that should be spotted out during the process of you hiring them or you bringing them onto your team. If you find that you hired someone that was once motivated, that was once engaged, that was once very present and going above and beyond and doing all of those things, but now they're showing signs of what you deem as laziness, it typically means that they're actually disengaged rather than lazy. And the reason for the disengagement often has more to do with you than it does with them. I know that was a lot because it's very easy to blame employers or and blame your employees and blame things on them and their lack of work ethic and why they don't want to do things. But the reality is, if this is something that has been a pattern, or this is something that's been ongoing, or this is something that does not match how the employee once was, then that means that it probably has more to do with you and the way that your organization is structured and ran than it does with the person that's exhibiting the behaviors. So I want to talk about first some common signs of disengagement that we see. This is employees only doing the bare minimum, right? And by employees, it could be employees, volunteers, whatever type of organizational structure that you have, but them doing the bare minimum. And by bare minimum, I don't mean that it's them not doing the things that are on their job description. It means that even getting them to do this stuff on their job description is difficult. They're supposed to show up every day at 8 a.m. and work on a specific thing. But in order to get them to do it, you have to remind them, you have to constantly be on them, you have to do all of these different things. However, what I don't mean is that employees should have an expectation of going above and beyond. I'm going to talk about that at length in a different video, but employees having to go above and beyond is also a testament of an issue within the structure of your organization. No one employee should be responsible for doing the job of more than one person. So if you have a person on your team that's having to go above and beyond, it's usually a sign that there is a system, process, or something that is missing within the way that the company is ran in order to ensure that employees are only expected to do what they were hired to do. So by bare minimum, I mean it's hard to get them to even show up to work and do the very basics of their responsibilities to show you that they're alive and even there, right? Another thing that shows disengagement is missed deadlines, mistakes, working at a very, very slow pace, having very low participation in meetings and company initiatives. When they're having one-on-ones with you or there's group meetings, things like that, it's as if they're absent, they're not really present. Also, more behaviors of quiet quitting, right? They're checking out mentally. They're there physically, but mentally, it seems like they're in a whole nother place. And truthfully, another thing is their demeanor, right? The attitude that they project just shows you that they're there, but they're not really there. These are the signs of disengagement, right? And so if you're thinking about the people who are on your team or on your volunteer team or whatever the team may be, and you're thinking, okay, I'm identifying a person that is mentally checked out. They're here, but they're not there, or they're always missing meetings. They're always late. I always have to beg them to do the most basic things that they agreed to do. And I remember a time when I didn't have to, but now I do, then that means this video is 1,000% for you. Or if you are a disengaged employee that's watching this video, then this will tell you how you got to where you are. Because this is the interesting thing. A lot of people start at companies and they're very excited. They're very eager. They're ready to work. They're ready to do all of the things. But something happens over time that makes them transition into not feeling as committed and not feeling that their level or a certain level of commitment is actually required or expected out of them. And that's often what goes unnoticed or that isn't talked about is the idea that if you have employees who are quote unquote quiet quitting or employees that are disengaged for an extended period of time, that lets you know that there is a thing within your organization, right? Or there is this undertone of culture that allows people to be disengaged. It lets you know that as a leader, you don't prioritize or value your employees being present and engaged when they're at work. And in order for you to notice that disengagement is truly happening, it means that you also have to be present as a leader. Very often, leaders are not present, they're disengaged, right? And by disengaged, I don't mean being engaged with the bottom line. Of course, you care about the numbers. Of course, you care that things are getting done in that context. But do you care about the well being of your employees? Do you care about the well being of your volunteers? Are you a person that is engaged enough to even notice disengagement? This is typically why you see disengagement go on for as long as it does, because again, as I talked about in the last video about company culture, which you should watch if you haven't watched it yet, a lot of times leaders are the model, right? So if you notice something happening with your volunteers or employees, it typically means that this is a behavior that has been modeled or allowed or tolerated by leadership. Leadership and the way that they behave is always going to be a precursor for how your employees are going to act and respond. And oftentimes, one of the main reasons that employees become disengaged is because of what they see in leadership. Poor leadership is reason number one, right? Leaders who don't communicate, leaders who don't listen, leaders who are not present, leaders who don't develop their teams, right? And actually make the intention to grow them beyond where they started are going to be the teams, right? Or they're going to lead the teams that are going to be the most disengaged. Every team that I've worked on or been a part of, right, has been a little bit different. But the leaders who are the most engaged and who are the most present, who are the most hands on, who actually care, who communicate with intention, always have been the best to work with, right? And whenever there was an employee on the team who was lax or who didn't care or whatever the case was, they always weaned themselves out because they knew that there was a leader there that was present that would not tolerate that, not just based on the standards that they speak out of their mouth, but based upon the standards that they demonstrate and that they held us accountable to. So, reason number one why employees become disengaged is because of poor leadership. Next reason is because they don't feel valued. If employees feel like they're just a number or that all you care about them doing is their task or their responsibility and you care nothing else about them, they're going to stop putting in extra effort. Employees, and it's actually beyond employees or volunteers, just people. People want to feel heard. People want to feel seen. People want to feel like they are cared about. And just because you pay someone, just because you have a mission or a vision that they bought into, it doesn't mean that it's licensed or it's an excuse for you to be able to treat them as if they don't matter or that they can't expect to be treated a certain way at work. And so if employees don't feel like their contributions are valued, then it means that they're no longer going to put in extra contributions for the company, right? Next thing is a lack of growth opportunities. If there's no clear path forward, if they don't know what they're working towards, if there's no opportunity for them to grow and to be challenged, then why should they try harder? I know for myself, I'm a high achiever. I was in sales. I cared about hitting my numbers. I cared about growth. I cared about my performance. I was one of those people. And if it felt like I was working and working and working and there was no end goal to that, there was nothing I was working up to, I wasn't working for more money or a promotion or anything like that, then you start to feel disengaged because what am I doing all of this work for? Yes, they may love your mission. Yes, they may buy into that. But at the end of the day, humans, people, they like to work towards goals. We like to make progress. So if you don't set aside, whether it's budget, opportunities, whatever, for there to be growth for the employee, then they're going to have nothing to work towards. Another thing is toxic work environments. If the workplace has a lot of tension, gossip, if there's favoritism, people are mentally checked out all the time, right? There's just chaos and confusion in the environment. People will disengage because of survival. You have to understand that employees are very complex. People are complex. They're layered, they're multi-layered, they're multifaceted. And so, if an individual feels like they're going to come to work and it's going to be a toxic space, things are all over the place, it's chaotic, they will disengage for the sake of their mental health, and they'll disengage because it's just a natural human response, right? Some people will plow through and they'll push through with their head down, but just because they're doing a lot of work doesn't mean that they have not mentally checked out. Your hardest worker, let me tell you, and I know this because this was me. I was a high performer. I was doing great. I was doing amazing. And I would be on my one-on-ones with my manager, and she'd be like, yep, we're gonna do this, 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 and this. And I was like, cool, right, awesome. And afterwards, I'll be on Indeed or LinkedIn looking for somewhere else to work. Just because an employee is doing well doesn't mean that they can't be disengaged. It does not mean that they aren't checked out, because oftentimes it is the high performers, it is the people who are contributing the most that will be the most impacted by a toxic work environment or a toxic work culture. Relying on the performance of a team member and just saying, okay, they're performing well, so they must be feeling well, is wrong. Just because someone is able to push past the chaos in the environment and push past the environment that you have tolerated and allowed, does that mean that it's something that they want to remain in or that they will remain in for long? It's not an excuse, again, or license for you to continue to allow a poor work environment to flourish in your space, because people will leave and then you'll continue in the cycle. You won't be able to retain employees. You'll keep hiring people, but they won't last long because the environment has not been set up in a way that they can stay, right? Um, so these are the reasons typically that people become disengaged. There's few ways that you can fix it, but first and foremost, you have to acknowledge as a leader that this is something that's happening and it's something that has to do with you. Because ultimately, as I said before, when you're dealing with disengagement, when you're dealing with people who are quote unquote lazy, whatever it is that you want to call it, if you continue to allow the behavior to be the way that it is, it's no longer on the employee, now it's on you. A lot of times as leaders, we like to complain and just say, hey, this is how people are. But if you allow the behavior to fester, if you allow it to sit, if you talk about it more than you act on it, then it's going to remain the same. And another thing that you have to keep in mind is disengagement is contagious. If one person is disengaged and it's allowed and it festers, it will spread. If a negative mindset is being cultivated in your teams, it will spread like wildfire. And it's much, much harder to correct disengagement on a team level than it is on an individual level. So if you have a person in your mind right now that's disengaged, you need to start making the action steps, right? Or taking action to fix these things. Because if you don't, it will spread across teams and then eventually it'll spread across the company. And you'll have a company that's filled with disengaged workers who don't like being there, who don't want to work there. And you'll have leaders that no longer will be able to meet their targets or meet their metrics or just be leaders that they can actually be proud of. So here's a few quick things that you can do to fix engagement, right? Number one is give real recognition. Employees need to understand and know that the work that they're doing is valued, that the work that they do is cared about. However, the recognition has to be specific. Don't just say, great job, thanks for working hard, because it comes across as inauthentic. Actually be engaged enough to see the contributions of your employees and call them out specifically. This could be, hey, great job on the meeting today. I love that you did X, Y, and Z. This was really impactful. Continue that. When employees understand that the work that they're doing is valued specifically, honestly, and genuinely, then they will be more inclined to continue to do that. As much as we're adults, people still sometimes act as children, right? And if you think of a child, when they are reinforced, when you tell them that they did great, when you give them that attention, they respond to that and it makes them want to do that much more. Number two is to make the career paths clear and make sure that you are investing in growth opportunities. Help employees see where they're going, why they're working as hard as they are, what it is that they're working towards. Because if there is no growth, as we said before, they absolutely won't be engaged anymore. Make sure that you are prioritizing growth also beyond promotion, right? Give them perks, give them opportunities, whether it's a half day that they'll get to work if they do X, Y, and Z. Set up time to be able to engage with the team. I know Like some of our teams in the past did games at the start or did get to know you questions, gave us opportunities to connect with one another. But it can't just be a task that's just a check off, right? Or I'm just doing this just because. It needs to be something that's filled with intentionality. So get feedback from your team on what it is that they would like to do and what engagement as a team would look like for them or how they would like it to look for them. So that way, that's something that you can begin to invest in and prioritize. But all in all, having the clear growth opportunities for them to connect as a team and to grow individually and to grow even in their connection and mentorship with you is imperative. The next thing is to fix the leadership gaps. This is one of the biggest things. Train managers to lead, not just to supervise. And this brings me to my next point, that oftentimes we hire leaders based upon how good they were at the role. But just because you were great at a task doesn't mean that you are fit to lead. Being a leader and being a manager is completely different. Leading someone means that you have to be able to take them somewhere. You have to be able to support them. You have to be able to develop your teams. You're taking them to a new destination. And that comes from you being able to model the behavior and having the people skills necessary to develop the team. Managing is just you watching them and telling people what to do. And ultimately, people don't respond well to managers, they respond well to leaders. Right. So you want to make sure that the people you've put in place to lead are equipped with the tools, the resources, the training necessary to be able to effectively lead their team and train their team and develop them in their respective area as well. The next thing is you need to make sure that accountability is a part of your culture, right? Low performers, as I said before, drains top performers. So if you allow behavior to slide that is bad or that doesn't align with your culture or your values, then your best people are going to start to disengage. So you want to make sure that you are a person of accountability yourself, that you hold yourself accountable, that you are present, that you are engaged as a leader so that you can see the things that need to be corrected, and that you're a person that follows through and actually means what you say. Lastly, improve communication. Employees should never feel confused about their expectations, their company goals, where they stand, what they ought to do, where are we going, all of those things. Leaders need to be able to communicate. So, right now, you can ask yourself, do my employees know what success looks like in their role? Do my employees know what's expected out of them? Have I identified behaviors that shouldn't be there and I never address them? These are questions that you can start to ask yourself. And if this is something that you feel is a challenge for you in your organization, then you can begin to take the necessary steps and invest in the resources that you need in order to improve them. So, those are just a few things that you can do to address disengagement. But ultimately, you have to accept the fact that disengagement doesn't fix itself, and disengagement is not something that just happens by coincidence. It happens because there has been a series of events that have led to disengagement within the company culture. So, if you're seeing these signs, again, that means that you need to take action, right? It means that you need to take the necessary steps. And if you're a person that's watching this and you're like, I'm dealing with this, I really, really need help, click the link in the description of the video, schedule a call with me. I would love to learn more about what it is you're dealing with and see how I can help. But all in all, I hope that this video has been super, super helpful and that your employees will go from being disengaged to fully engaged, active, and profitable. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.